Welcome to today's program, which features Vonette Bright, co-founder with her husband Bill Bright of Campus Crusade for Christ, now known as CRU, which is one of the world's largest Christian ministries. Vonette died on December the 23rd, 2015, due to complications from acute leukemia. She was 89. In view of this, I'm pleased to bring you a previous interview I did with this extraordinary woman, and I began by asking her why she hadn't retired after she had lost her husband back on July the 19th, 2003.
I'm having too much fun to retire. My husband has given me many things, projects to do, and before he passed away, he and our son formed Bright Media Foundation, and so this is to keep Bill Bright's works relevant and in circulation, and we actually right now are promoting a book called God Discover His Character, and so it's the movement is Discover God, and it's one of the greatest needs in our world today. People do not know who God is, even in the church, and so we need to help people to put into words who is God, learn His attributes, and to see the difference that He makes in our personal lives, being able to apply those attributes to the way we live.
When was Campus Crusade started?
It was in 1951. Bill was a businessman, and God had called him to work with students, or he had a great burden for students, and then he also had a burden for reaching the world for Christ, and he was concerned about the fulfillment of the Great Commission. And so he felt that in God's revelation to him was that it was to win the world, to have a part in helping to win the world to Christ, but the place to start was with students. So we have some 70 ministries with Crusade, working with every segment of society, and from kids to adults and senior citizens, so it's all through life.
How on earth did you ever keep up with Bill? Because he never seemed to stop.
Well, I was in there plugging with him the whole time, so that we were a team, and he was so great to include me in all that he was doing, and I took out time to be a mama, and but we were a team. He traveled a great deal, of course. Was gone away from home a lot, but.
When you married him, Vonette, what year was that, and did you ever dream that this would turn out into such a huge ministry?
Well, we married in December of 1948, and we lived together 54 years, 6 months, and 20 days, and when he went to be with the Lord. But Bill, from the very beginning, felt that we would have 1 million people as a part of our staff at some time. And in his lifetime, we almost made it. But with the Jesus film, and of course, has been such a great boon to the whole cause of Christ and to many groups. We've been blessed, and such a wonderful staff. And so Bill and I can't take credit for what's been done, but the people that have joined with us and are still with us, and we still have a staff of over 25,000 in the United States and over 250,000 around the world. So, and all committed, all living modest lives by comparison, and it's just been the dedication and commitment of the staff have really been the secret, and those who have believed in us and have supported us, that has been wonderful.
When did he pass away, and were you with him at the last?
Yes, I was. He passed away on July 19th of 2003. Yeah. He was ready to go. He had learned 3 years before that he had a terminal illness, and when his doctor told him, he said, well, I'm just going to see Jesus a little sooner than I had anticipated. There wasn't a tear. There wasn't any remorse, and he just realized that there were things that he wanted to accomplish, and he made a list of 89 different projects, and he was able to finish all of them. And the last one was finished just a couple of weeks before he passed away, and then he thought up another one at the last minute in that he had a dream that was just, he said, I've had my first nightmare, and it was that he was in a convalescent home, and here were people that were just wasting away, and he felt, if we could just mobilize these people to pray, that they could be used of God in such a significant way. It would keep them alert.
Yeah.
It would give them something to do, and it would be so profitable to the kingdom. So he wrote a little leaflet on with my dying breath. So he was working right up until the time he lost consciousness in the last couple of days, and I was with him.
What were the last words he said to you?
Well, the last words he actually said were, comb my hair. In that he was expecting a guest and to come, and I had asked him if he wanted his breakfast, and he said no, he didn't want anything to eat. And then I asked if he would, that I reminded him that he was having company, would he like his bath? And no, he didn't want anything. He just wanted to rest. And when I mentioned that his friend would be there in a couple of hours, and I said, is there anything I can do for you, honey? And he said, would you comb my hair? So my hair looked all right for the guest. And but he told me many, many times, of course, how he loved me. We talked about the future. He was, any time that he was and asked about pain, it was, I'm rejoicing. So he left with a smile on his face, and he was breathing only 4 breaths a minute. And so I decided that it was time, that he was struggling so much. And I said, honey, I want you to go be with Jesus. I know you want to go, and you know he wants you to come. And why don't you just crawl up in his lap and let him carry you to heaven? And he took one more breath, and that was it.
What was it, Vonette, you'd like people to know that maybe they didn't know about Bill? They always saw this well-dressed guy. What was the human side, maybe even a funny side of Bill that people didn't know about?
Well, Bill had a tremendous sense of humor, and he people I don't think knew enough. He was a great jokester and a prankster, and just always had something. I could never be mad at him, because if I would start with something of a correction or something of the sort, he always made some comment that I'd have to laugh. But he really lived what he professed. This man loved Jesus, and he really wanted to be. He ate, he breathed, he talked, he slept. The Great Commission. He was just so totally committed to it. And everything he did, he evaluated in light of the fulfillment of the Great Commission.
What were some of the practical jokes he played then?
Oh, dear. How can I tell you? That I remember one time he was pleased when we were dating, and he was not very pleased. We'd just become engaged, as a matter of fact, and it was at a very busy time. I was in college, and I was in my senior year, and so I hadn't been writing to him quite so much. And so he was saying, if this is what it means to be engaged, then I want no part of it. And so I thought, well, what do I do here? And I said, well, honey, I guess we'll just have to trade me in for a new model. And that was it. It broke the ice. But let me see. He just turned something that was, I would think would be tragic, into something with laughter. I can't think of any special thing. The thing that means most to me is that he called me his beloved, and he'd come to every evening when he came home. It was, so he opened the door, my beloved, my beloved, my beloved, where are you, my beloved? That usually I was pretty close by, but it was just fun.
Where and how did you meet?
We grew up in the same community, that 5 years apart.
Which is where?
In Coweta, Oklahoma.
Okay.
A little small town outside of Tulsa. And that we grew up admiring each other, not to discuss it or no romantic interest, but that I just thought he was going to be a very outstanding man. And as a 7th grader, I was listening to him give an oration that he had won a national contest. He was as a senior in high school, and he was giving it to the student body, and I was listening, and I thought, oh, this man is going to be a great man someday. I hope he's the kind of man I'll marry. Having no idea of Bill Bright, but that he certainly was an admirable young fella, and it was obvious he was going to do much with his life.
What did he say when he asked you to marry him, and how old were both of you?
He was 24 and I was 19, and he proposed to me on our very first date. That we had been corresponding for some months. He'd written me a note originally after my freshman year in college and hoped I was having a wonderful time. He'd been to the Coconut Grove, which was the night spot for young people in Hollywood, and of course to the big band era. And for his sister's birthday, who was my age, he'd taken her for her birthday, and he had seen a young actress, and he wrote saying that he had seen this young woman and that she reminded him of me, and he hoped I was having a nice summer. All of 3 sentences, but signed it, Love, William. And I was so thrilled, of course. My dad came home and said, well, our small town boy has gone away. He's made good. And he was a success in business. It was an early success. And she says now he's going to come home for his bride. So I thought, he is writing this just to thrill me and think I'll be so excited to hear from him. So I didn't answer his letter for several months. When I did answer it, he sent an airmail special delivery in return and asked if he might call me on the telephone. And it was, though we didn't know each other well, it was that our families knew each other. His sister was a very good friend of mine, and so that started the romance, and then it got to be a letter every day pretty soon. And as a young man in business, he swept me off my feet. He sent me flowers, he sent me candy, he sent me darling letters. He was a great correspondent.
He was living in Los Angeles then, was he?
He was living in Los Angeles, and he had wandered into the Hollywood Presbyterian Church, committed his life to Christ, and then began to think of his future, and he was interested in me because I had grown up in the church. But my brand of Christianity was not quite the same as that he had experienced, and knowing Christ personally. Mine was churchianity, but I learned to know Christ after him.
Did he lead you to Christ, or what happened?
No, Henrietta Mears led me to Christ.
You're joking. Tell us the story.
Well, Henrietta was had been very influential in Bill's life, and had challenged him to go home, get down beside his bed, and follow what the Apostle Paul, as the Apostle Paul did, to say, Lord, what would you have me to do? And so that was the time that he pointed to a change. But he never asked Christ into his life as he told everybody else to do. He never went through the 4 spiritual laws or whatever. But he knew that his life had changed at that time. That he just, and when he asked what God wanted him to do, he gave all. Nothing was held back. And it was just God met him in a special way. Well, he was writing me about this, and I thought he'd become a religious fanatic and tried to rescue him from these fanatical people. And, of course, when I met them, I got rescued.
Did you try and rescue him then?
Well, I had minored in chemistry in college, and I kind of prided myself on a little bit of an intellectual point of view. But after all, I'd grown up in the church, and it wasn't this exciting as these folks. I never experienced anything in the reality that they had. In fact, I had become discouraged because I had never been aware of an answer to prayer, or I had never been, the Bible, as I tried to read it, it didn't make sense to me, and I had lots of questions that had not been answered, but I felt like Christianity was just thought up to make people behave themselves. Now, I didn't need that, but when I met the group of people that had been an influence in his life as well, sharp, attractive young people that were on their way to success. They knew how they were getting there, and God was a vital part of their lives. They talked about Jesus as if they knew him personally. And when I met them, I thought, these are a handsome bunch of kooks, but, I wanted to be like them, but I didn't understand. I couldn't understand their conversations. And then I after about 3 days of being at a briefing conference where there were 1,000 of these people together, I said to Bill, I don't think this will work for me. it works for you. I don't want to stand in your way. I think God has something very special for you.
Was this a Forest?
This is a Forest home.
Yeah. This is in California.
Yes,
yeah.
This was before we were married. Yeah. We knew that we were poles apart in our thinking and faith, and that was, we'd already agreed that if we had disagreements, we would work on agreement, and that divorce was not an option for us. But as we were trying to work through this, I just knew that this I would be a hindrance to him, and I loved him too much to mess up his life, and there was just no real compatibility there. And so I had suggested that we would wait till the end of the conference so we wouldn't be embarrassed, but that I would slip back home and teach school. I had a teaching contract that was available to me, and I was about to, I think of what I almost did, but he suggested we go talk with Henrietta Mears, and of course she had been a chemistry teacher in Minneapolis City Schools, and she just whittled away at my objections, made Christianity so attractive, helped me to understand the verses of Scripture that would lead me to Christ, and so she challenged me to receive Christ on an experimental basis. Just try him, just like you'd go into a chemistry lab. And so that's what I did. About 3 days it all took. And I began to see answers to prayer and direction for my life. And so we decided that we would be married in December.
Where and when were you married?
We were married in Oklahoma. I went back, and I had gone to California to Forest Home for this conference, and Bill wanted me to apply for jobs and to stay in California. My parents were not very happy about that. And but I did apply several places, but I looked all of 14 years of age, and for the sophistication of high school students, that it was they just laughed when I talked with the principal. They said these high schoolers will eat you up. They're so sophisticated in California by comparison. So we determined that I should teach in junior high, and so I made application, and then by the time I got back, there were 3 jobs, any one of which was open to me. And so I did teach school soon after. We had about 3 weeks to get settled, and then started teaching, and I taught for 3.5 years.
We're talking with the one and only Vonette Bright. What a charming lady. She's just continuing with her husband's legacy, but how exciting. What a great story. And who would have dreamed that this young man that you met all those years ago would be such a revolutionary? He didn't look like a revolutionary, but he was. There was something. He was so single-minded. It was incredible. Tell us the early days, the very first early days with Campus Crusade. Did people around him think he'd taken leave of his senses?
Oh, absolutely. I remember hearing someone saying, "Oh, poor Bill Bright. He has such a burden that will never, never be realized. And it's just one of these days, it's all going to crash." And, we've never heard from those people that were saying poor Bill Bright. Where they went by the wayside, I don't know. But he knew what God wanted him to do, and that was all that made any difference. And
were there times in the early days where he was discouraged and almost wanted to give it up?
No, not to give up the cause, but there was one time when we had purchased Arrowhead Springs, and that God had brought in the money at 2 minutes before midnight. But in that agreement, there was a sale of some land that was involved, and the man that had offered $250,000, which was like $2.5 million at this point. In fact, the property was for sale for $2 million, and it looked like more like $25 million to us at that time. But that he, when Mr. Atkinson, who had made this offer, came, and of course we were so thrilled, it announced to the whole world that 2 minutes before midnight all the money had come in. And Mr. Atkinson found out that there was some sale of the land, and he said, that wasn't in the agreement. You were to buy you were to raise the money, not to sell property. And he remembered when in Orange County they were selling for $35 an acre, and now then, of course, it was in millions an acre. And so he knew the value of the property. So he withdrew his offer. And my husband came home for dinner that night, and I had prepared dinner on the kind of the point of the property where our house was sitting, and to rejoice and being with the children. We were so thrilled, and I don't remember what I served, but I know it was I prepared it special because we had it was a happy time. And so Bill sat down at the table with this long face, and he said, "Well, the deal is off." And he said, "It's just," and then he told me the story. And his shoulders were kind of limp, and I just never seen him like this. And he told me the story, and then all of a sudden it was as if he realized that what was happening. And he said, "But if God does not, this is all in God's hands, and if He doesn't want us to have this property, we don't want it. And so it's His problem, not ours." It was just 5 minutes, not any more than that, of his discouragement. Bill it was always God has a way. If this is not right, He has another plan. Let's find out what the plan is.
One other question. How did the 5 spiritual laws come about?
Oh, the 4 spiritual laws.
You can see how good I am at this.
Well, actually, we were putting together, trying to condense the gospel. We always started with the thought that God loves you and has a wonderful plan for your life. And he had written his testimony and what he said to students, because he had great success as he was telling people about the Jesus Christ and what He had done and so on, and giving the plan of salvation. And so he was always outlining the scriptures and so forth into these verses, and then as we were putting it down, that everything always began with, you're a sinner, and that for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God, and about sin. And Bill said, "Wait a minute, that's not our message. Our message is God's love, and it's attractive, and God is positive, and that He loves us first, and then He tells us that we are sinners, and for God so loved the world, that He gave His only begotten Son." And so then it got to be that we, with this outline, that our staff began to call it the 4 spiritual laws. And then someone had suggested, a layman suggested that we put it in a little book so that we could put it in our pocket. So that, have you heard of the 4 spiritual laws? It was sometime, I think it was about 1963. Wow. That came about.
We're speaking with Vonette Bright. What a delight to talk to you. And, this is history. This is the church around the world, especially younger people need to know church history. And Bill and Vonette Bright were involved, and Vonette's still involved in one of the greatest moves of God we've ever seen, and continues. How many countries now, do you know?
192, I believe, but in all the world. And the greatest tool, of course, has been given to the cause of Christ in modern time is the Jesus film, and that's being used by hundreds of denominations and different groups. And so over 5 billion people have seen that film.
We're almost coming to the end, but I'm dying to know about the Jesus film, how Bill got involved, and it's just an extraordinary, it's a phenomena that we've never seen before, have we? And I know your hubby had a great love for movies and stuff, and the power of film. How did he get involved with the Jesus film?
Well, he, of course, being in Hollywood, but he felt he was always looking for new ways to present the gospel and the most effective way to present it. So shortly after we were married, or at the time we were married, he was talking about there needed to be a film on the life of Jesus. Yeah. And he went to Cecil B. DeMille, who had just finished the 10 Commandments. Yeah. And Cecil B. DeMille really encouraged him. had said, and he had done the silent film on Jesus that had been shown all over the world with great effectiveness. But we had prayed about this for some time, and Bill made the statement once that the Lord had delayed it for 35 years until there was a young man by the name of Paul Eshelman who came on our staff, and then Bill gave the responsibility to Paul to handle it. Paul, we had Expo 72, and Paul had been kind of the mastermind behind that. And, of course, the secret of the ministry of Crusade has been the staff. They've been so committed and dedicated, just as we've been, and very, very capable. And so it's really that Paul has devoted so much of his life to this film, but it's been carried to every part of the world. And now then, it's not only the original Jesus film, but we have one for children and now one for women. And that children tell the story. It's still the same film, but they tell the story, give the invitation. Now then, we have one called Magdalena, Delivered from Shame. And so this is having mega results. It's just wonderful to see how in different parts of the world the message to women is so important. But men love it too, and getting a new perspective on women. God bless you. This has been a divine appointment.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Dan.